Ladies and gentlemen, we ask that you please take your seat. The event will begin momentarily. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we ask that you please take your seats. The event will begin momentarily. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. As we all know, we're here for justice for Vanessa and justice for all our soldiers, all the men and women who serve our country every day, all day. We want to thank all our speakers today. I'm not going to take a lot of time because they're going to be voting soon, so we're going to go a little bit out of order. And I'm going to introduce Mullen, Congressman Mullen from Oklahoma, who's been incredible with getting justice for our soldiers, justice for Vanessa, justice for Richard Stayskull. He has been the champion and co-sponsor of the Richard Stayskull Military Medical Accountability Act, and right now the Vanessa Guillen bill. And it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be where we are today with all these new rights that our soldiers have that they never had before. So let me introduce Congressman Mullen.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you for being here. You know, Vanessa, I can't say I knew her before the incident, but I've got to know the family, and the first time you meet the family is the reason why so many of you guys are here. Your heart breaks for them because we see our family. We see our daughter, we see our sons, we see our family that could be easily put in the same position. Enough's enough. It's time to say stop. And so we've been fighting for this Vanessa Guillen Act bill for over a year now. And we finally seem like we have a path forward. Maybe, hopefully, with prayer and with continued fighting for this bill, we could see the language included in the NDA on the Senate side. And then we could get this thing signed into law. You know, the Department of Defense had came out and recognized that, yes, there's a problem. Yes, we need to have more studies done to it, but it needs to be put in law. We need to make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else's daughter or son, for that matter. And so I'm not going to be long. I'm actually going to be very short and sweet. Thank you. Thank you for fighting for Vanessa. Thank you for fighting for my daughters, who I have 3. Thank you for fighting for your family and those that you don't even know, because this will change. If we can get this bill into law, this will change. It'll encourage those that are being sexually harassed to come forward. It'll make sure justice is served to those that not only are harassed but are assaulted. Too often we hear stories, and too often we deal with it after they come home. That can't continue to happen. So, in closing, I've got something I want to present to to Vanessa Guillen's family, if you guys both will come up here. I met with them last year, and it came to my attention that in just a few weeks, it was going to be the anniversary to Vanessa's, to when Vanessa was killed. And I thought, you know, we're still fighting this. The mother's still broken. The father's still broken. Myra's still broken. The sisters are still broken. And I want to make sure that we have something to symbolize that we recognize what happened and recognize that we're going to continue to fight. So on her passing, the anniversary of Vanessa's passing, we flew a flag over the United States Capitol on her behalf. And it symbolizes two things. One, we won't ever forget her. And two, we won't ever quit fighting until justice is served. So with that, I'd like to present Myra with the flag that was flown over the United States Capitol on behalf of Vanessa Guillen and your family to our promise that we're never going to stop fighting. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Mullen, one of the biggest hearts in Congress here. Thank you. We now have Senator Gillibrand, the champion of this bill, and I'm going to give her an opportunity to speak her mind and tell us all why this is so important to get this bill passed.
Thank you so much, Natalie, for your leadership, your determination, your stick-to-itiveness, your leadership and your vision. And to Myra, thank you for your tireless advocacy, your love, and your dedication. It never ends. Thank you. I also want to thank Vanessa's mother, Gloria, who is appearing today virtually. We are here marching and rallying to honor Vanessa Guillen and to fight to change how things are done in the U.S. military today. We are fighting to change how men and women are treated in the U.S. military today. We're fighting to change how these cases are handled and what happens after these crimes are committed. We're fighting to make sure what happened to Vanessa Guillen never happens again. This week, the U.S. Senate is considering the National Defense Act. The National Defense Act is the opportunity for us to change this law, for once and for all to make sure the Vanessa Guillens of this world have a chance to be heard, to have justice, and to make sure that their voices are not drowned out, are not brushed under the rug, are not silenced. But that's exactly what those in charge want to do. Not only do they want to deny a vote on this amendment, not only do they want to deny the opportunity for these advocates to be heard, but they want to make sure that the law does not change. There's two pieces of legislation that we are fighting for. The first is the Military Justice Improvement and Increasing Prevention Act. This is the bill that would recognize that in order to provide our service members with real justice, we have to change how the system in the military works. First of all, the decision should not be made within the chain of command. The decision about whether to prosecute these cases should be made by trained military prosecutors, someone who's actually a lawyer, someone who has no bias, someone who has no skin in the game, someone who can look at the facts and do the right thing for the right reasons, someone who has no bias. We know that in so many of these cases of sexual assault and sexual harassment, the person who comes forward is not believed. They are not believed. They are retaliated against. They are the ones who are often prosecuted. They're the ones whose careers are ended. They are the ones whose lives are ended in murder. That is what is happening today. This bill would allow for those cases to come forward to a trained military prosecutor to decide whether to go forward to an actual trial. It would allow for the prosecution by trained prosecutors who have no bias, who can do the right thing for the right reasons. That bill today sits in the Armed Services Committee bill. It's in the Senate version right now. After we vote on this bill, that bill will go into something called a conference. The doors close. The people in that conference committee will take it out. What happens when the doors are closed and the light is not in? That is where justice goes to die. That is where bad things happen by bad people and justice is not done. We shall not let this legislation be taken out in conference by a committee that is not answerable to you and I. It is not right. I believe that NDAA, as today, should be passed in the U.S. Senate and should be retained in conference. Make sure the American people understand that anything less means that Vanessa Guillen would never have an independent review by a trained military prosecutor outside the chain of command who could bring justice to her, justice to our family, and actual justice against her perpetrator. Vanessa Guillen was one of the cases that troubles me so much because it's not unlike many other cases. She was harassed by a soldier within her own unit, but then she was murdered by another. What the military wants to do is they only want to have 2 crimes removed from the chain of command. They just want sexual harassment and they just want sexual assault. Well, murder is not one of the crimes they want removed from this chain of command. So in Vanessa Guillen's case, she herself would never have had that separate, professionalized system of justice. She herself would never have had the professionalized review by someone unbiased and highly trained to review her case. It's just not right. And how many other cases are hidden because the harassment may not be reported or the assault may not be reported? How many victims of domestic violence have their checking account stolen or their bank account stolen or the crime scene covered up by arson? How many other crimes are used to cover up violence, assault? So we believe that this legislation, this bright line, at all serious crimes except for uniquely military crimes, is the right way to handle serious crimes in the military. This bill has the support of 66 senators in the Senate. It has the support of 220 House members in the U.S. House of Representatives. It is widely bipartisan. How many pieces of legislation in Congress do you know that have the support of Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley and Rand Paul, but also Liz Warren and Bernie Sanders and Chuck Schumer? I'd say next to none. But that's how common sense this legislation is. So we know this bill has to pass. So we must have this legislation. The second bill that has been written in Vanessa Guillen's honor is a bill that is an amendment that we want included in this year's NDAA. We have asked this bill to be attached to the vote we are having this week. We have asked this amendment to be included, and it is about justice. It's about allowing a family like Vanessa's to be able to sue the U.S. military for claims that are due because of what outrage has taken place. It is wrong that justice is not possible for Vanessa Guillen's family and for Vanessa Guillen. This is called the Military Claims Act. It is a common sense amendment that would allow for justice to be done on behalf of Vanessa Guillen and her family and millions of other families like them. If a service member experiences any kind of personal injury or death due to a sex-related offense committed by a member of the armed forces or a DOD employee and the military failed to prevent it, the service member deserves to be compensated by filing a claim against the very organization that failed to protect them. So I will keep working for these two pieces of legislation that have been written in honor of Vanessa Guillen and other people who have been murdered, harmed, and survived these types of crimes. We must stand with Vanessa Guillen and others like her. This is our solemn duty. We will not give up, we will not give in, and we will not forget. God bless you.
Thank you, Senator. She says the truth. You know, this cannot die. It has to be passed. Her advocacy, her commitment to sexual assault survivors in our military is second to none. And what amendment is it? 70, that's correct. Senator, they all know 3870. We have that down pat. Thank you so much. Our next speaker, I see Josh Connolly out there. Is the Congresswoman here? 1 minute. So I want to share this with everyone. You probably have heard, but Congresswoman Jackie Speier is retiring. And sad about that. I think our country should be sad about that because we're losing one of the greatest advocates in Congress for our military. Congresswoman Speier championed the Richard Staeskel Military Medical Accountability Act. Congresswoman Speier championed the I Am Vanessa Guillen Act in the House. And she's just been an incredible champion for our soldiers. So as much as she deserves to enjoy her life and be with her family, I feel like it's a loss for our country to have such an incredible advocate retire. However, we should be happy for her. Hopefully we'll have somebody that will fight like Senator Gillibrand, like Senator Speier, come in her place. But, you know, it's just, we all have to congratulate her for her retirement, but it's a loss for our soldiers. Josh, what is the look of it? Can I put one more person in here, or is she coming? Oh, wonderful. Senator Hirona's here. Thank you, Senator, for coming. Also, Georgetown Law graduate. Senator Hirona was the co-sponsor of our legislation, and I want to thank her for coming today and introduce her. Senator Hirona. Thank you, Senator.
Wow, what great timing. I arrive and I'm already on. Thank you so much. Well, thank you very much, each of you, and it is a lovely day for all of us to gather, and I want to thank especially my friend, Senator Gillibrand. She has been working to get these kinds of changes to UCMJ, the Uniform Code of Military Justice, for 8 years. Where are you, Kristen? 8 years. See, this is what is required a lot of times, and matters like this, you have to stay the course. So I thank her, and of course, my friend Congresswoman Jackie Speier. We're sorry to see her go, but we have her for another year, and she will continue to be a tremendous advocate on these issues. So the perseverance that has made this a priority for the Senate, for Congress, and for the country, We owe it to Kirsten, to Jackie, and all the other people who have come forward under their leadership and their initiative to make these kinds of changes. And today we are here to honor the memory of Army Specialist Vanessa Guillen. And like so many women in uniform, after reporting sexual harassment by a supervisor, nothing changed. And as we all know, Vanessa was then tragically murdered by a male soldier. And this really broke our hearts. And it breaks my heart that women who risk their lives to protect our country have to worry about protecting themselves from violence and harassment from within the ranks. Sexual assault and harassment and violence against women have been pervasive in our military for decades. And yes, we have to contend with these these kinds of crimes in the whatever environment we're in, but in the military, it should not be happening. It'd be hard to find a woman in the military who has not experienced sexual harassment or assault, or who does not know someone who's experienced it, or someone who has experienced it and not reported it. No one should ever have to face retaliation or fear for their safety for reporting a crime that has been committed against them. But right now, that is still too often the case. And we need to change the culture that lets sexual harassment and assault to happen in the first place, and a system that allows it to go unpunished. And we need to protect our service members who deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. And we also need to ensure our military readiness. A strong and effective military relies on trust between all members of a unit. And when these crimes go unpunished, where is the trust? We have a duty to our service members and to our country to eliminate the scourge of sexual violence in the military. So here's what we need to do. We need to make the changes to the Uniform Code of Military Justice make sure that they include Senator Gillibrand's Vanessa Guillen Military Justice Improvement and Increasing Prevention Act. We need to make sure that her bill's provisions remain in NDAA, which we will be taking up this week. And these changes take concrete steps to protect survivors of sexual violence, hold perpetrators accountable, and restore our service members' trust in the military justice system. So, of course, I will be going back to the Senate, and I'm going to continue along with Senator Gillibrand and others to make sure that this language, which took so long to put into NDAA, remain in NDAA. And I thank you all for being here to be with us in this just cause. As we say in Hawaii, aloha, mahalo nui loa. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hirona. We have Congressman Jackie Spear, who I was just talking about, just showed up. Beautiful Jackie Spear. I don't want to take much of your time because I know they're voting, but thank you, Congresswoman Spear. Like I said, she's championed this bill. She's championed the Richard Stay-School Military Medical Accountability Act. Without Congresswoman Spear, nothing gets done. Congresswoman?
Thank you. This is a really profound moment for all of us who've been working on this issue, because we are at the cusp of doing something truly transformational. 10 years ago, this month, I introduced the first military sexual assault legislation to take these cases out of the chain of command. I was spurred to do so because a young lawyer had filed a lawsuit in federal court claiming that victims of sexual assault should be compensated and that the Ferris Act should be ignored. The lawsuit was barred because of the Ferris Act, but one night I took that complaint on the plane with me on my way back to San Francisco, and I read the complaint. I read the stories of all of these victim survivors, and I thought we had to do something. So I started reading their stories on the House floor. I told over 30 stories. And each of them would call after they watched the video of their story being told on the House floor saying, "Thank you, thank you. Someone believes us." The military failed to give them justice, which many of you have told me was even more painful than the actual sexual assault. So by entering their stories in the congressional record, they were grateful that someone had acknowledged their pain and suffering. So when I introduced this bill back in November of 2011, I was ridiculed. There was a fair amount of derision. There were Democrats that would not even support it. So it was a challenge. The military assured everyone that they could fix it, that they had zero tolerance. And so we put over $2 billion into the Department of Defense so that they would, quote, fix the problem. 10 years later, I'm sad to say that nothing has really changed. In many respects, it may have even gotten worse. 20,000 service members, men and women, are sexually assaulted in the military every year. Only 6,000 of them report it for fear of retaliation. And of those that report, only 600 perpetrators are actually court-martialed. And of those, only 200 are convicted. That is the definition of failure and injustice. We know from the Army's investigation that Specialist Vanessa Guillen was sexually harassed. Her leadership knew about it, and they did nothing. That's been par for the course in the military for a long time, but that is changing this year. Specialist Guillen's brutal murder galvanized her family, her friends, thousands of survivors, and millions across the country into an unstoppable movement. All of them were on Facebook saying, "I am Vanessa Guillen." The Fort Hood Independent Review Committee identified a toxic environment at Fort Hood. They interviewed thousands of service members and others, and they made 70 recommendations. The Independent Review Commission, with Chair Lynn Rosenthal, who I believe was going to be here or has been here, concluded what we've been saying for years. We have to take these cases out of the chain of command. The Secretary of Defense Austin, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Milley, and the President agree. Independent attorneys who have the skills to evaluate these cases, independent investigators who have the skills to evaluate these cases must be making the decisions as it relates to these special victims' crimes. So after a decade, we are here at this great moment. And I've got to thank Natalie. I've got to thank my co-leaders in the Senate, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, who has done a monumental job, to Senator Hirona, to my chair of the committee, Adam Smith, and to my colleague, Mark Wayne Mullen. We came together in a bipartisan fashion to do what we should have done 10 years ago. Imagine how many lives would not have been scarred, 200,000, had we taken action 10 years ago. You know, ironically, last year in the House version, we got a pilot program to take these cases out of the chain of command in military academies. And then it got pulled out in conference. So we've come a long way in just a year, and we have the Guillen family in particular to thank, and Natalie came in to thank for giving us the extra lift. Now, we've got to make sure that we remember Vanessa Guillen forever. We can't bring her back, but her legacy has to be that this bill is passed and signed into law. But beyond that, we need to make sure that these victims of sexual assault in the military are compensated. It is time for us to take responsibility for a toxic environment in which many of our service members serve. They come to serve. It's our duty to keep them safe. And when service members have said to me that they were willing to put their lives on the line for this country to protect our freedom against the enemy, they never thought the enemy was going to be another soldier or airman or sailor or Marine standing next to them. It's a disgrace, and it's a disgrace that we are going to change this year. And I promise you, as I end my career in the House of Representatives next year, I am not going to stop until we are able to compensate victims of sexual assault. Thank you.
Daniel, can you take this picture with the Congressman before she leaves? Thank you. You're very, thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Jackie.
How are you?
That brings a lot of memories.
I know, but you know you're doing something fabulous. You realize that you're saving so many lives.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you so much. Again, thank you, Congresswoman Spear. We all want to, we're very fortunate to have her. And thanks, Josh Connolly, for always taking my texts and responding to me. I would have changed my phone number by now, but you like punishment. Our next speaker is going to be Don Christensen. He is with Protect Our Defenders. He's been an incredible advocate for soldiers, and I don't need to say more because I think everybody knows his work and advocacy. Mr. Christensen.
Thank you, Natalie. It's a real honor to be here. I've served in the military for 23 and a half years as a judge advocate, as a military lawyer. I had personal experience of seeing the failure of the system to deliver justice to people like Vanessa. And for the last 10 years, as Representative Spears talked about, she has been fighting to get reform in the military justice system, reform of how we take care of people who would have served, raised their hand, and said they're going to protect this country, but they themselves weren't protected. And during that time, the Department of Defense has been in a full front attack against reform. And they have been successful on many occasions to do that. And they thought we would never get to the day we are at now, where we are, as Representative Spears said, on the cusp of major reform. They thought they'd be able to win. But three things they did not count on. They did not count on Jackie Spear. Jackie Spear has been tenacious. She is the reason that so much of this is going to be done. She never gave up. She pushed back. She worked with coalitions to get reform. And she has achieved so many changes to the military justice system in the last 10 years that have increased protections for victims, that have increased rights of victims, and got them closer to justice. They didn't count on Kirsten Gillibrand. Senator Gillibrand has somehow managed to get Ted Cruz and Elizabeth Warren to agree on something. That itself is like Nobel Prize kind of achievement. And so she has been as tenacious and got a filibuster-proof majority of the Senate on bipartisan grounds to support her legislation to reform the process. But I think most importantly, what they did not count on is the power of a family from Texas with immigrant parents. The Guillen family would not remain silent when the Army wanted them to be made silent. The Guillen family would not stand on the sidelines when the Army wanted to put them in the sidelines. We are here today not only to honor Vanessa, but to honor the commitment of her family to ensure that this will come to pass. I am overwhelmed by the power of the Guillen family. They are true heroes for America to say that they were going to honor their daughter, and they were going to say to the world's largest employer with the world's largest budget, the Department of Defense, that we will not back down. No mas. And that family held the Army to their core values, held their feet to the fire, and with the help of Natalie and the help of people like you and advocates and the media, pushed the I Am Vanessa Guillen legislation, pushed that message that I Am Vanessa Guillen was one of tens of hundreds of thousands of other survivors. And so we are at the point where we can finally say that to men and women who serve, we got your back. The idea that the people who sacrifice more than any other American citizen, our members that serve in the military, cannot bring a claim against their employer for sexual harassment or sexual assault when every other person they protect in this country can, that is an injustice. And that injustice needs to stop now. So Senator Schumer and the other senators, now is the time. Now is the time to pass this legislation. 3870. So it was a true honor to be here today. The Guillen family, I wish I could speak Spanish. I'm horrible. But I tell you, I love you and I respect you. And your daughter is very, very proud of you. So thank you.
Don, I love you and I hate you. You made us cry. Now Myra has to redo my makeup. Thank you so much. Those are very touching words. And you know, everyone, I really want to thank everyone here because you're all picking up what we're all saying here. And he's right. You know, this has been a fight for so long, and we have an immigrant family fighting it. And look what we're accomplishing every day. Myra's strength and tenacity, her courage, she inspires me, and I just so proud of her, so proud of her. I think we all are. So I want to give an applause to Myra. I love you too, Myra. Our next speaker is, sorry. So they're voting right now, so we're going to do a few of the speeches that were sent to us. First one's going to be from Fatima Goss, who is the president of National Women's Law Center. After that, it will be Eva Longoria. And, you know, I don't have my phone, so okay, so we good with it? Fatima to start? Okay, Fatima is first.
Hi, everyone. I'm Fatima Goss, president at the National Women's Law Center, and I am so honored to be here for the Guillen family and for all the courageous survivors of military sexual violence who are here speaking up. The National Women's Law Center supports the Guillen family. They and all survivors of sexual violence in the military deserve policy reforms that will help protect service members, that will prevent retaliation, and that will hold perpetrators of sexual harassment and assault accountable. We are in solidarity with all of those who have said, I am Vanessa Guillen, and it is past time for meaningful reform and justice. And we know all too well that sexual harassment and assault are pervasive across our armed forces. We also know that most military survivors don't report misconduct. because they fear retaliation by their commander or their cohorts for speaking up. They believe their perpetrators will be shielded from facing the consequences of their abuse, and they have too often proved right. The military must confront the systemic problem of sexual harassment and violence in the ranks and create a culture of accountability that values and protects all of its members. So today, as the U.S. Senate comes closer to voting on the National Defense Authorization Act, let us all call for justice for service members we have lost, for their families, and for all survivors who have had the courage to share their and are leading the drive for change. Please keep up your advocacy. Definitely do not stop. And we are here right alongside you. Thank you, and it is a true honor to be here with you.
All right. We were going to do another video, but we're not. Right now, we're going to do the president of the National Organization for Women, Christian, I'm sorry, your last name, Nunes. I don't want to say it wrong. So Nunes, she's new with the National Organization for Women, I should say, from the last one, and all great stuff. This year has been an incredible movement for women, and she's doing an incredible job. That's all I gotta say. So a round of applause for what you've been doing, because I've been watching it, and thank you for coming.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here, and I also want to thank you for this time, this opportunity to speak on behalf of the Vanessa Guillen Act press conference. National Organization for Women is thankful to be here, but under unfortunate terms. And what we're here today to really talk about is what's been happening and our obligation and our duty as elected officials, as organizations, as an activist. Vanessa Guillen and many soldiers have been failed by the military when it comes to protecting and reporting sexual violence and sexual misconduct. We know sexual violence is sexual violence. And when it's our duty to protect survivors, regardless if they are civilians or active duty military. We are here today because we have a duty to seek justice for Vanessa Guillen and so many other soldiers who become and been told that their issues were not needed to be discussed. They need to be kept quiet. But we have to hold organizations, branches of federal government, accountable. So that's what we want to talk about. But the sad truth is, women are often left behind in today's military, where survivors and cultures of complicity, denial, and cover-up perpetuates the trauma endured by survivors of sexual assault and denies them justice. And that cannot be acceptable or accountable. Women in the military frequently decide not to report a sexual assault because they know the repercussions that will come their direction, whether it be stopping of their careers, whether it be feeling other forms of violence or harassment, and also just being determined difficult for speaking out. And it is time today that we say this is no longer acceptable. We will no longer tolerate it, and we will stand up, right? And we will speak out against these things. Thank you. One of the things I think was so interesting that Senator Gillibrand brought to our attention is she said, nowhere in America would we allow a boss to decide if an employee has been sexually assaulted, except in the U.S. military. So why are we still allowing this to happen? We have to ask ourselves that question. And today, we want to make sure that we no longer allow that to happen, and we put this terrible right wrong, so no other woman, no other family has to go through what Vanessa Guillen's family went through. We are here to demand justice for Vanessa, and we are here to make sure every survivor of sexual assault or any sex crime has been felt betrayed or let down, that they know we're here for them today. And we're standing for them today, and we'll be their voices today. and we'll make sure that handling of sexual assault and other violent victims of crime and harassment are no longer tolerated. There is no logical, ethical, moral, or humane reason for active duty military soldiers not to have the right to sue defense for pain and suffering when they've endured because of their violence that's been covered up and mishandled. The Senate must amend the National Defense Authorization Act to allow survivors and their families to file claims, seek monetary money and compensation for cases that have been mishandled. It is our duty to make sure they're held accountable and make sure this is passed and amended. So I ask you all, we also all the times hear elected officials and politicians and others get up at the end of their speeches and they say, thank you, our military, for your service, right? We hear that often. And we hear that on Veterans Day and Labor Day and other Memorial Day and holidays. But today we're saying that thank you is not enough. We need action, and we need it now. We need bold leadership, and we need it now. We need justice for Vanessa Guillen, and we need that amendment for the National Domestic Act. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you so much. Right now, we just have Congresswoman Escobar, who just joined us, and I know they're voting, so I'm going to give her the mic without doing much to say.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank all of you for being here today to show your support for the family of Vanessa Guillen and for all of our service members. I want to thank Vanessa's family and supporters and advocates for being so steadfast. This has been a long and arduous journey, a very painful one, not just for Vanessa's family and loved ones, but frankly for the innumerable service members who are reliving their own trauma as all of this has unfolded in front pages and television sets across our country. And it is absolutely tragic that it took Vanessa's murder and the incredible loss that her family has had to endure to bring us to this moment, but she brought us to this moment. And we holds the dignity, and I give all of you who that held us accountable, U.S. Congress. I am so incredibly proud of the work that I have been able to do with Chairwoman Jack. To retirement just this week, we are losing a tremendous voice in the U.S. Congress for women and for service members. But I am very, very proud of the work that we did 2 NDAAs ago, the National Defense Authorization Act, the law that we are trying to change. 2 years ago, all of these conversations were controversial. The reforms that we wanted to bring forward were outright dismissed. It took the loss of a beautiful life, the extinguishing of a beautiful future, unfortunately, to wake up the Congress. But this will be Vanessa's legacy. The fact that she gave her life and her future to this country, not knowing what was in store for her, she has ended up changing the U.S. military for all future generations. I know we are going to get this done. We just have to make sure that we preserve every aspect of what we did in the House. We need to make sure that every reform that we included on the House side, that the Senate preserves it. So your voices, my friends, are so important. Your advocacy, your pushing, and more importantly, your accountability. Hold us accountable. Make sure that we are doing right by every service member and every family member who serves right alongside their service member. So God bless you for your advocacy. Thank you. La lucha sigue, and I am with you in that lucha. Muchísimas gracias.
Moises, can you take a picture with us with the Congresswoman? Here you go. Oh, okay. Eva? Okay. Right now we have a video from Eva Longoria. She sent it to us, I think, yesterday. So I think we're going to play it now. If you're good with that, Amber? Or? Good. Okay, thank you.
All the people who enter the military do so to serve the United States of America. In helping keep the country and all of us safe, they risk everything and endure hardships most of us would shrink from. At the absolute minimum, it is our job to ensure that our soldiers have a safe environment free from sexual harassment and assaults. The I Am Vanessa Guillen legislation will help protect and prevent sexual assault and harassment of our brave men and women in the military. This law would not only weed out and punish those who tarnish the reputation of the U.S. military, but it will provide the resources and procedures to properly investigate, prosecute assailants. With this legislation, we support the military in its fight to weed out the perpetrators of sexual abuse and thereby protect our soldiers, sailors, and airmen from sexual harassment and assault. Let's be brave like those who serve in our military and take this first concrete step toward ridding our armed forces of this kind of behavior. It is the least we can do to provide some small measure of justice to Vanessa Guillen and the many other unknown Vanessas out there.
We're waiting for Congresswoman, is it Congressman Castro? Should we just do Gloria now? Okay, so we're going to show Gloria Estefan's message to us. Very, very deep, and she's absolutely correct. So here we go. And by the way, we want to thank Gloria Estefan for being an incredible advocate for the Vanessa Guillen's family and for our soldiers. She had us on Red Table Talks. She donated a lot of money to this cause, and I want to thank her wholeheartedly for her contributions to this.
Hello everyone, I'm Gloria Estefan, and I so wish that I could be with you in person to be a part of this valiant effort by the family of Vanessa Guillen, an honorable soldier who was brutally murdered at the hands of her abuser. These efforts that they have taken will better serve to protect our service men and women from sexual misconduct. It is of utmost importance that Senator Gillibrand's Amendment 3870 be included in the 2022 NDAA so that the victims of sexual misconduct can have an avenue to get much needed and deserved relief. People who are the victims of sexual misconduct can be very seriously injured, both emotionally and physically. These injuries can cause long-term disabilities, making a continued career in the military and employment in the civilian world very difficult. Further social and psychological care is often needed. Here, should the third-party prosecutor find an offense by an active duty service person against another in the form of sexual misconduct, and the DOD knew or should have known of the abuser's proclivity to do so, either because of actual or constructive notice, and could have prevented it, the victim should be entitled to fair and reasonable compensation commensurate with the physical and mental injuries. The claims process would only apply if and when a third-party prosecutor or the military chain of command determined wrongdoing. My heart is with all of you and the Guillen family who have suffered so much and are trying to do better for our servicemen and women. Thank you.
Myra, okay, we're going to put Myra on while we're waiting for the Congressman. Myra Guillen, who has been, like I said, an incredible force. Actually, I want everyone to stand when she speaks to introduce her. Myra Guillen.
Oh, man. I hate public speaking in general, so sorry if my words aren't very fluent, but I do want to thank each and every one of you here today that went out their way and made it happen. I know it was a very short notice, and usually these things take a lot of time to organize, and you know, it really touches me and my family that all of you guys came out here today and are supporting us, continue to support us, and will support us until our goal is fulfilled. I want to thank all the senators and congressmen and women that have been here today also, and they've been supporting us since day one with this legislation. Unfortunately, the year of 2020, it wasn't made full, and we're here now this year trying to fulfill this goal in honor of my sister Vanessa, who deserves so much more. My mom, my dad, they unfortunately couldn't be here today with us due to health reasons and just the trauma that my mom went through with everything that happened with my sister. So I do ask you guys to keep her in your prayers, so she can get better and lift her voice up again, because my mom made a huge difference in this case. And it's up to me and my sisters to keep pushing forward and speaking out for our sister. I do want to point out that we're closer now more than ever to accomplish the bill, and the only thing we do ask for at this very moment is for the amendment 3870 by Senator Gillibrand to be included, because it will make these victims' lives easier. It's not easy to start from zero. They can't keep being in the same place where they only wanted to pursue a career in the military because of their aggressor, because of you know, all the retaliation that they would be facing. And it's sad to hear that things are this way, but it's the truth. People won't notice until money is involved, and I hate to say it, but as soon as they start seeing how many people are held accountable and how much it's costing them, then something will be done. There will be accountability. They won't just move them from base to base thinking that it's going to be a forgotten story. My sister hasn't been a forgotten story and won't be a forgotten story, I can assure you that. And we will keep pushing as much as we have to, and all of this was because of Natalie. Natalie literally became like my second mom. She's mentored me and guided me through this whole process, and if it wasn't for her, I don't know where we would be today. And I know Vanessa is very happy that I got to meet Natalie, and because of her, all of this has been accomplished, and she is now part of our family, will be part of our family, and we're so blessed to have an attorney that actually cares for the people and our military. So I want to ask everyone to please applaud Nana. You know, all her efforts, this isn't the first time that she's done this. She's already worked with Richard State School's case with the medical malpractice, and we're not trying to do this for the sexual misconduct, but because of Senator Gillibrand, it is now including murder and domestic violence. So this is something really big for our military, and we hope it gets done. And when people lift their voice, things happen. So thank you all for being here today and for supporting us since day one.
Thank you, Myra. thank you, everyone. You know, we couldn't do this without everyone here. And again, like I said, Myra inspires me. I love her. And I believe that everything bad, something good happens. And I got to meet Myra and the Guillen family and have them in my life forever. And I just appreciate everything she's done. She's never said no to me. That's why she's my BFF. No. But, you know, every time I've asked Myra to fly up, fly down, do something, she's never said no. That takes a lot. You know, we have a 23-year-old girl. She just turned 23, or lady. And I don't know. Everyone in your life, when you were 23, were you having to fly to D.C., fly to Tampa, fly everywhere, do these press conferences, not go to clubs, bars, and have a good time, but rather every day we're on the phone. I'm calling you guys. She's calling you guys. Calling reporters. We're writing speeches. I see a future congresswoman here, guys, by the way. But she's just been incredible. And, you know, I think we're going to get this passed this year. And we're going to do it. But we just can't stop until it's all signed into law by the President Biden. We need your support. Senator Schumer, right, everyone? Senator Schumer, we need your support. I want to also thank my partner, Alan Ripka, who's here. He's been incredible, really smart. I want to thank Jerry Harrington, standing there. Jerry's been in my life for a very long time, and one of those people that really cares. You know, every time Myra or I had an issue, if it was some senator, if it was some congressman, or it was something, we called Jerry. And he really is a wealth of knowledge, and he cares, and he's committed to the Guillen family. He's committed to our soldiers. He's committed to our military. And really, you know, there's not many people in the world I can call for advice or help but Jerry Harrington. So again, thank you, Jerry. Go ahead.
I also wanted to shout out to Lupe. I know that she's watching this right now, and she wanted to be here today, but she's very busy with school. It's her last year, so as much as I wanted her to be here because we've always done this together, I know that she's watching this, and you know, because of her, a lot of things happened as well. Her voice was and is very huge in this case, and when I couldn't talk, she took the mic and she made sure that people knew what we were both feeling and thinking. So I just want to say that I love you, Lupe, and thank you for everything.
Amber, Congressman Castro, do we have a time? Sorry? Okay. Do it without? Yeah, I think so. Sorry? Okay. So I'm gonna ask Alan to give a few words because, you know, he's very, like I said, smart and insightful, and I know it's out of order, but I want to ask him to speak. So sorry, Alan, but I'm going to do that to you. Again, my partner, Alan Ripka.
Thank you, Natalie, and thank you all for being here. We've worked really hard for this cause. I said to the Guillen family, I'm so proud to be a part of this, obviously with Natalie leading the scenes from outside and me sort of being from behind the scenes and doing all I can in trying to help organize and push and think of ideology to make this happen, to make people listen. You know, you've all heard, you know, why do you have a voice if you don't use it? And the Guillens have used their voice, and Natalie has used her voice to make change in this country and to make women and men in the military feel safe, to feel like they can volunteer and go into the military and potentially give their lives so that we could all be free and stand out here and sit out here and fight for causes that we believe in. And yet they're there feeling unsafe. They're feeling that they could be harmed and hurt and abused, and there's no recourse for them. And here are people that likely join the military so they can make a difference and represent people, but yet those very same people haven't been there for them. And Vanessa Guillen's life will be remembered forever, being the person who sacrificed herself, her family, for change in the United States of America, for change for women, for change for sexual abuse. And I'm very proud to be a part of it. I'm very proud to know the Guillen family and the work that Natalie has done. And I thank you all for being here, and I hope you keep yelling and screaming and shouting and marching and having signs up in the air and writing your congresspeople and senators and calling them and pushing them, and don't accept no. All right? Let's protect our people in the military. Let's protect all people. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan. So I think I'm going to close because it's getting hot, and I know everyone deserves a break today because we did a lot of marching. Again, this bill is so important for our military, but really it's important for all of us because our military protects us. The morale has to change. Right now, without this, it's a low morale. With this bill getting passed, our military will feel safer, they'll be protected, and they'll feel like they're equal to us, because right now they're not equal to us. Right now they don't have a right to file a claim. They don't have a right for compensation. They don't have a right, they don't have recourse. They don't have any relief. Is that a lot to ask for relief? When you're a victim, it's unfair. And I think we just got to think about how important it is. All the senators out there, all the congressmen and congresswomen, the president, think of how unfair it is that you're saying one group of people are denied a right to be made whole. One group of people, not illegals, not inmates, not immigrants, just soldiers. And that's unfair. We need to give them, provide them the same rights that we have. And I want to ask Senator Schumer to please support Senator Gillibrand's Amendment 3870 to MJPA. It's so important. I know we're worried about sidewalks and all that stuff, but how about soldiers? Thank you again, everyone. Thank you so much for being part of this cause. And we're not finished until it's signed into law, until we're all there watching President Biden sign this into law. Thank you.